like I was being puppeted, that these thoughts were being implanted in my head.
I would find myself in places that I couldn't remember getting to.
I had that feeling that someone was present with me, that there was someone in my periphery.
Everything that I'd ever been through was on that page. Everything on that page was me. Around 9 years old, I started to get feelings of suffocation. When I would get changed for PE, it was just like this feeling of absolute dread, like of terror that I would have to change my clothes and expose myself. And it was terrifying. And I remember being just my chest like locking up and I'd be completely unable to breathe. And this panic would just sweep over me and I couldn't do anything about it until it had completely washed over me. And I didn't know what it was, but it kept happening over and over and over again, and PE was the worst time. Every time I tried to change my clothes, it was just awful. For me, school was quite a confusing time. And I don't really remember the vast majority of school, if I'm honest. I didn't really know who I was, or what I liked, or what I was into, or even who a lot of my friends were.
I recall Jess as being very sweet, but also quite nervous. She was a very emotional girl. She would get really overwhelmed and then I suppose cry. I don't really know how else to put it. I think she cried quite a lot. She'd get really overwhelmed and panic and get quite upset.
I just thought she was quite weak and a bit of a pushover, and that annoyed me at the time.
I started to have these really horrible images, and they would sort of come and go almost in the blink of an eye. It would be like I was watching film back in front of me, but then I couldn't remember what the film was, only the feelings that came with it, which was absolute terror and fear and dread. When these horrible films were playing through my mind and playing back in front of my face, I wouldn't really remember or know what was going on around me. I would just see these things and realise that they were these awful memories. When I sort of snapped out of it, I couldn't really remember what they were about either. I just knew that they were horrific and horrendous, and I definitely didn't want to see them again.
I always thought that Jess was a bit of a worrier. She was very unsure of herself, and I didn't want to get too close to that sort of energy. I was quite wary of how emotionally sensitive, of how emotionally sensitive she was, and I didn't want to get too close to her because in the weirdest way, I didn't want Jess to drag me down.
I would describe Jamie as definitely a know-it-all, which I think kind of rubbed certainly rubbed me up the wrong way, like at times, because he'd kind of brag about it. It wouldn't be about teaching you, it'd be more about, well, I know this, so I'm kind of better than you.
Jake was strange, geeky kind of character. I didn't really affiliate with him for that exact reason. He had a strange, unfamiliar accent to our town, which I think caught a lot of people off guard. He was small, shy, unassuming, meek kind of person, and I think it was all of those things that made him an easy target.
The first couple of years of secondary school were pretty miserable for me. I remember at one point my best friend breaking up with me one day and just saying, "What you do isn't normal." And I didn't really know what to make of that. But with her gone, I had no one. And I think that's really when the bullying started to get worse.
I was aware Jess was being bullied, and it really broke my heart. Like, every time I tried to sort of step in and help, I just ended up making things worse. So I think after a time, I just kind of gave up, you know? Like, I felt like I just ended up running and hiding just as much as Jess was.
I was aware she was being bullied, but I didn't know her very well at the time, and my advice to her was not the best. I think I just said to her, laugh it off, laugh at yourself, why not? But looking back now, Jess couldn't have possibly done that because her self-esteem was so low.
I would get a lot of strange taunts, like, "Ooh, you like girls," and just stuff that didn't make sense to me at all. I would find notes in my school books, like, "I hate you," and "You're ugly," and "No one wants to be your friend." Just stupid stuff in my books all the time. And no matter what I did, I felt like I couldn't keep my books away from anyone. They would just keep appearing over and over again. It was horrendous, and that was definitely one of the turning points, I think, for me, to know that there was something wrong.
I feel weird saying this, but I felt like she deserved it. I'm not really sure how to feel about that now. I still really think it was the right way to feel. And obviously now I've got this big thing where I'm like, well, no, obviously it wasn't, so it's a bit weird.
For Jess, Ed was pretty scary. Like, he didn't like her, and she didn't really know why.
I kept finding scratches and bruises all over my body. So my arms at first, my stomach, and then really badly on my thighs. And I didn't really know where they were coming from. So I was thinking, wow, am I doing this in my sleep? Am I falling over, tripping over? Am I doing something that I'm not remembering? What's happening to me right now? Am I being bullied physically without me realizing? Is it that bad?
Sometimes I would feel like I had people beside me or behind me.
It was terrifying. And I think that at that moment I knew that the people in my head were coming forward. When I reached puberty, it just felt completely overwhelming to me. Like, I didn't want my body to be noticed as female. It would frighten me to think that there could be people who would look at me in that way. It really made me feel uncomfortable. So I would wear a lot of sports bras and strap everything as closely to my chest as possible. I didn't have any female clothes. They were all male clothing. Everything was as baggy as possible. Nothing gave me any shape. I just felt like there was something inside me saying, you cannot be you in that way. This isn't your body, or I wasn't even sure if it was my body at the time. I felt really, really lost and confused as to who I was. Almost like I was just driving a vessel. I think when anyone grows up, they go through a period of, who am I? But I really went through a period of, who am I? What do I like? What don't I like? What's my gender? What's my sexuality? What is anything that makes me me? Is this my body? Is my name Jess? What is my name? Who am I? That time in my life was such a blur. It was a complete and utter blur of who I was, who the people in my body were, what my life was going to become and what that meant for me.
I suppose Jess would have thought something along the lines of, I'm having these feelings, these thoughts, these ideas, therefore they must belong to me. But even if you're holding these ideations, it doesn't mean they belong to you.
So Piers, what about you? What about your identity?
I was never confused about my identity. I knew I fancied blokes, so I knew I was a bloke. Jess was the one that was confused.
I would have these moments, these blackouts, where I would just find myself in places that I couldn't remember getting to. One day I came to from one of these blackouts in the middle of a busy city with shopping bags and the highest platform heels on, with blisters all over my ankles. And I had no idea why I was there or what I was doing. But I just had to keep on going until I can try and place the pieces back together. My life started to spiral. I had that realization that these people in my head were coming forward and taking control of my body, even without me being aware that they were doing that. And it was terrifying. I didn't know what I could possibly do to stop them, but I knew I had to try something. I needed to get help, and I knew I needed to get help. I knew that there was something wrong. I remember leaving school early one day, going all the way across towns to see a psychiatrist, only to be told, there's nothing I can do to help you. I don't think there's anyone that I even know could help you. Nobody would help me, and I was completely on my own. And it was at that moment, even though I was so upset, I said, well, if no one's going to help me, then I'm just going to have to help myself. I'm going to have to learn to help myself, because I can't deal with my life the way it is right now. I need help, I need support, and I need answers.
Actually, I was the one who attempted to set up the help. I saw very clearly that there were conflicting outlooks on the world, and that there was the potential to make life very difficult.
I was always very interested in the human mind and psychology, and this just piqued my interests even more, because I thought, there must be people like me out there. There must be others that go through this similar thing. Maybe I can find the answers and not only help myself, but I can help other people too. I can help others just like me for this strange and unknown condition. Whatever I was suffering with, there's bound to be somebody else out there like me. So I decided that I was going to study clinical and health psychology. I was researching some university articles in preparation, and I came across this article about schizophrenia. The article said schizophrenia is not to be confused with dissociative identity disorder. I had no idea what that was. I'd never even heard of it before. So I clicked on the page and had a look, and everything on that page was me. Everything that I'd ever been through was on that page. I realised that I was an alternate identity, an alternate personality, or an alter for short, in the same way that Jake was an alter, as was Jamie, as was Ed, and they all had a role to play in my life. Looking back, I understand much more about what was happening. I understand that the boys' clothes, the baggy clothes, they all probably came from Jake. I know he was very dysphoric and he wanted a body of his own, and I think the thought of putting on a bra or a revealing top was just so much for him. He couldn't deal with that. And those are the kinds of feelings that were getting fed back to me. I know now that Ed did used to self-harm, and he did used to hurt me, but he didn't mean to hurt me. He was just hurting himself.
I guess I realised that all those times where I had been blacking out or waking up in strange and unfamiliar places or finding myself in a new environment that I had no idea how I got there, that it was my alters taking control.
DID is an amazing coping mechanism, and it helps people function when they've had significant trauma happen in their childhoods. So the alters will all take a part of that and take a piece of that memory, and it allows everyone to function in their own way. I think my alters are all boys because when I was younger, I thought what happened to me wouldn't have happened if I was a boy. I was obviously young, naive, and didn't understand that it could, and I felt more vulnerable being a girl. When we see little Jake, it's like we can't really get to him. When we have this envisionment of where he is and what he should be like, it just seems to be like this glass box that's keeping him in. Like, we can't access that yet. It's our mind's way of saying we're not ready to talk to him yet or access that, because that could leak all of your trauma and that could leak all of the memories that you have. So we're not going to go near that yet. So the best that we can do for now is just self-soothe him whenever we feel him around, because when he does come out, we have these complete blackouts. So we believe someday though we'll get him more co-conscious than he is now. A lot of people ask me, would I get rid of this if I could? And my answer is probably not, at least not right now, because I have no idea what it's like to be one person. I only know what it's like to live this way. And my boys have done so much for me. They've helped me get through life in so many ways. And I appreciate them all, through the good and the bad.
When Jess had a name for it, when Jess realized I have dissociative identity disorder.
Not only did Jess have to live with that idea that she, had a mental health disorder, but I also had to live with the idea that I was part of that. And to a lot of people, I would just be thought of as imaginary. And that's not the case. That's not the case at all.
Yeah, I was hurting, and I had no other way of getting it out.
I just hated my life. I hated it. I hated this life that I'd been given. I hated Jess's life, and I was just all around miserable. I didn't ask to be there. I didn't ask to be part of this life. I was just annoyed that I was, and I think I took a lot of that out on Jess at the time.
I suppose I never really thought of myself as part of Jess.
This is the life we have, and we have a very enriched inner world life, and I think that to me makes up for anything like that. So it makes up for the fact that I have to share a body whilst out here, but inside I feel very fulfilled.